Welcome to New Wave Global, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Asad Ejaz Butt. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm joined by Dr. Ashfaque Hasan Khan, who's Director General of the NUST Institute of Policy Studies. He's been Special Secretary at the Ministry of Finance, also remained Pakistan's economic advisor. Let me welcome Dr. Ashfaque Hasan Khan. I'll talk to him about the IMF program. How is Pakistan's economy kind of shaping up, what direction we are taking, and why certain macroeconomic indicators are edging in the right direction all of a sudden. Is this a sustainable path? Let me welcome him first. Thank you, sir, for joining.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Sir, I'd start with the IMF program. Pakistan just signed an SLA with the IMF, the staff level agreement. Do you think this is like business as usual, or this SLA had some new kind of conditionalities, was like stricter than the past programs, or was this like a regular SLA that Pakistan has been signing with the IMF in the past?
There are two things. One, about the IMF program, and the other is about uh, whether the program is strict or it is business as usual. So let me answer your second question first. IMF program is always and always been a political program.
Hmm.
It has nothing to do with economics. It all depends the country's relationship with the largest shareholder of the IMF.
Hmm.
If you are standing on the right side of the largest shareholder, the program will be much easier, rather extremely easier. You will not feel whether you're going through an IMF program.
Hmm.
But if you are standing on the wrong side of the major shareholders, then the program will be very strict. And the strictness will depend how far you are standing off from the policies of the major shareholder or most important shareholder of the IMF. So this defines the strictness and the easiness of the program.
Hmm.
IMF program is a universal program. It has only 4 elements in it. A country, whether from the east, from the west, from the south, from the north, whosoever goes to the IMF, they will have to implement 4 policies.
Hmm.
The first one is tight monetary policy, means raise interest rate. The second one is tight fiscal policy, austerity, cut expenditure, and tax, raise tax rates. And the third one is so-called market-based exchange rate regime, means devaluation. And the fourth one is raise utility prices, increase the prices of electricity and prices of gas.
Hmm.
Look around the world. Take the example of Egypt. Take the example of Argentina. Take the example of any other country whosoever have gone to the IMF for balance of payment support. They are implementing these 4 policies. So this is universal policies. This is invariant with respect to the region, with respect to the country, and with respect to the timeline.
Hmm.
So this is one shoe which will fit for everyone. And this is the major drawback of these policies. This policy doesn't take into account the country-specific challenges, the country-specific sources of problem. For example, when we have inflation, we have studied in textbook that you tighten the monetary policy, raise the discount rate, policy rate, right? Who have written these books? Gregory Mankiw, Samuelson, Don Bush, Stanley Fisher. These are the people who grew up, was born and brought up and grew up in an environment where these things were studied and practiced. Come to developing countries. What are the major sources of inflation in developing countries? The failure of agricultural crop, the rise in international price of oil. So we import oil, we import inflation. Right? If the prices of commodities in international market are rising, we will import those commodities and it will increase inflation.
So are
And
you
then the government itself is raising the prices. How? Through raising the prices of electricity and prices of gas.
so are you
Now,
saying are you
yeah,
saying
I'm simply saying
okay.
that how can you reduce inflation when you yourself are increasing the inflation by raising tariff, electricity and gas? Because these will be the factors of production and it will be passed on to the consumer. Yes, you'll be asking question.
Um, are you saying, sir, that all inflationary episodes in Pakistan in the past was supply driven and we've not had demand driven inflation? Is that what you're saying?
Mostly in developing countries, largely, they are supply driven. Now, take the example of United States and the European inflation in recent years, particularly after the Soviet Russian invasion on Ukraine. There was an oil embargo, gas. They imposed sanction on Russia for the export of energy
Right.
and some commodities. Naturally, the prices have gone up. Inflation went as high as close to 10% in the United States. They increased the interest rate, right? Both in Europe and in America.
Mm.
If you look at the study done by many central bank of Reserve Bank of New York, Reserve Bank in US, they said that the 60% contribution to US inflation is originating from supply side shock and 40% from the demand side shocks.
Mm.
But there is no instrument on the supply side, only one, and that is the interest rate. So interest rate were working for 40% of to the item which were contributing to inflation in the United States or in Europe. And that is why it took much longer than to bring inflation down.
Mm.
But in our country, it is largely supply driven. If the prices of wheat goes up, do you think that by increasing interest rate, we can reduce the price of wheat?
Huh.
It's simple. So these are the problems in the IMF program, that they don't take into account the country-specific sources of the problems. For us, for the IMF, balance of payment difficulties is because there is excessive demand.
Do you think, sir, there was like an act of compounding in the recent inflationary episode? Because thank you for pointing out that it was supply driven, but then we had COVID first, which was also kind of a supply side shock because of the supply chain disruptions. And then that was followed by the Russia-Ukraine war, which was an oil price shock, again, a supply side factor. So do you
Exactly.
think that these two things, the fact that Russia-Ukraine war was preceded by COVID. Do you think that that kind of compounded, which is why countries like Pakistan had hyperinflation, like around 40% in a few months in 2022, and then it took like more than 2 years for the inflation to sort of calm down? Do you think the compounding like had a factor?
Yes, of course, because we passed through a difficult time of COVID. It was not only supply disruption, but the commodities which we were importing from the rest of the world, their transport charges also went up.
Right,
The insurance charges went up. So all these added to the cost, and the costs were passed on to the consumer.
right.
Yes, it was the supply side shocks. As we were coming out of COVID,
Yeah,
and the market were opening, came this Russia-Ukraine war
yeah.
and sanctions on Russia. So there was once again supply disruption.
Hmm.
The supply of gas in Europe and the energy prices went up globally. So it compounded the difficulties. So you can see that the sources were the supply side, whether it is the commodity prices, whether it is the energy prices. Now, how can you address inflation when it is originating from supply side?
That's a good
Is
point.
demand
Yes.
is interest rate is the right instrument?
That was
I
my next
think
question.
this needs to be investigated. I
Right.
did that in the case
Right.
of Pakistan.
Right.
I did that. I wrote a paper. I shared with everybody who matters. Everybody knows that what I have said is right. They said these things privately to me, but said, sir, we are under IMF program. Standard answer. Sir, we are under IMF program, so we have to do what the IMF is saying to us.
Which is like a monetary policy tightening approach.
Exactly.
Hmm. Hmm.
No, this is basically IMF program is a demand management program.
Right. Right.
If you look at the national income account identity, I'm speaking this in a very economics 101 language because you are a student of economics. If you look at the national income account identity, on the left side is your production, which is supply side.
Right.
On the right side is our aggregate demand, consumption, investment, net exports. So IMF believes that it is always this right side overtaking the left side. And the interest rate is the right instrument to addressing the right side of the question, means aggregate demand side. And I agree with that. I agree with that. This is the right instrument. But you first find out whether in the country like Pakistan or any other developing country, Sri Lanka, even Bangladesh, is it exactly what is happening? The answer is no. Take another example, very simple example. Here is a country which is doing very well. Inflation is low, budget deficit is low, and doing fine. One fine morning, we wake up and we saw there's a war break up in the Middle East and oil prices went up. We are all net importer of oil and gas. Naturally, what will happen? Our oil bill will go up. It will affect our balance of payment. And then we go to the IMF in the same prescription. Demand management.
Right.
Demand management. How can you, through raising interest rate, you can reduce the international price of oil? These are the questions. When you raise this question, you are regarded as anti-IMF people. I'm regarded as the anti-IMF people in Pakistan. See, when I can criticize my own government's policy based on my experience, based on my education, I studied in University of Pennsylvania. I graduated from Johns Hopkins University. I studied with good professors, far better than many of the people sitting in the IMF. I'm a student of a Nobel laureate in economics who received the Nobel Prize in 1983. So at least I have acquired some knowledge from those people. And if I see something is going wrong in my country, I say to my government that this is wrong. And here you can, I do offer my advice based on my experience. But I have the same authority to even criticize what is wrong in the IMF program. So why I'm regarded as anti-IMF people? And I don't like IMF program. No, there are many things which IMF says. I agree with them. For example, privatization, deregulation. I'm all for that. I'm all for the smaller size of the government. I'm all for the role of private sector in economic development. This is not the job of the government to be in the businesses. So I agree many of the things, but I don't agree with the supremacy of the monetary policy in developing countries as a policy
Yes,
instrument. And senseless devaluation.
that's exactly
Senseless.
that's exactly what I was going to ask, sir. This was my next question. Do you think that there is like a greater role for fiscal policy in countries like Pakistan or in the developing world? Are you saying that fiscal policy is a much greater instrument than monetary policy in countries like Pakistan?
It has a larger multiplier effect.
Right.
And I agree that in developing countries, the balance, if you have to choose the policy, the balance is on fiscal side. But when you are in the IMF program, you're extreme opposite on the fiscal side. There is no role of fiscal policy in the IMF program. Rather, fiscal policy becomes subservient to the monetary policy. For example, we increased interest rate policy rate from 6% in September 2018, and we took that to the 22%.
Yeah.
It kept on increasing, and I was saying that, look, when you increase inflation, interest rate, empirical evidence in the case of Pakistan says that 1% increase in discount rate, 1 percentage point increase in discount rate increases inflation by 1.3% in 1 year time. Increases, not decreases. Empirical evidence. If you look at Pakistan Economic Survey, which is the Ministry of Finance document, the year 2022, 23, or 20, yeah, it is 2022-23. Look at Pakistan Economic Survey and look at the chapter on inflation. There is a box item there where this shows that there is a co-movement between interest rate and inflation. And this is exactly what was happening in Pakistan. My empirical evidence exactly says that whenever we raise discount rate, inflation went up. Because inflation, interest rate is the cost of borrowing. When businesses borrow from the bank and do their businesses, they passed on that cost of production to the consumer. Secondly, this interest rate fiscal policy became subservient to the monetary policy because when we increased the interest rate, interest payment went up. Last year, 90% of the revenue which was collected by Federal Board of Revenue, 90% went to pay to the commercial banks as a debt servicing. So we were living with 10% revenue. Naturally, then you borrow, and you borrow more than you accumulate debt. And that is why our debt during the last 5-6 years have ballooned.
But sir, just something that comes to mind, you just said that the cost of production goes up when the policy rate is risen, and that cost is passed on to the consumer. But doesn't that really imply that if you just look at the demand side, are we just implying that the investment channel on the demand side is stronger than the consumption channel? Whereas we hear that Pakistan is a consumption-driven economy, because when you raise policy rate, it does discourage consumption. But you're right that if you look at investments, the cost of production rises and then it is passed on to the consumer. So are we saying that the investment channel is like a stronger part of the demand side than consumption? Sorry. Yeah. I don't know if I was able to explain my question, but.
No, I've understood your question, and this is a very common question. I will answer it. This is a very good question. If you take the factors, production function,
Right.
Traditionally, you take labor and capital.
Right.
But we have an extended production function, labor, capital, raw material, and energy.
Yeah.
We call CLIM, K for capital, labor, L, E for energy, M for material, raw material, CLIM. Right. So what is the price of capital? Interest rate. What is the price of raw material? It is determined internationally. And it is affected by your exchange rate policies.
Right.
and then the price of energy.
Right.
Again, determined outside
Externally. Yeah. Yeah.
externally, but it has impact on the devaluation has impact, massive impact on the local price of energy.
Right. Right.
Right. So when I'm giving you the IMF program, IMF will tell you this devalue your currency. They will not say in very many words. They will say it should be a market-based exchange rate.
Mm.
Very sugar-coated, means devaluation. Now, when you devalue your currency, all the landed cost of your imported raw materials go up. What is the component of imported raw materials in our production function? 60%. So 60% input of our industries, landed cost goes up.
Mm.
Secondly, price of energy. Something happened outside the world, outside Pakistan, energy prices went up. So once, on the one hand, energy prices has gone up internationally, and when we import those energy, exchange rate take another impact on another hit on energy prices.
Right. Yeah.
So energy prices are doubly hit. It goes up. So your factors of production, two factors of production has gone up: raw material and your energy. The third third production function is capital. Tighten the monetary policy to control inflation. First, you create inflation through devaluation, and then you say control inflation by raising interest rate.
Right.
You first creating inflation through devaluation, and when inflation goes up, then you say, oh, tighten your monetary policy, raise your interest rate. Then you increase the third factor of production, which is capital. When these three factors of production goes up, then there is a pressure domestically. Oh, inflation has gone up, so raise minimum wage. Minimum wage ko badhao, minimum wage ko. So we also increase the minimum wage. So all the factors of production have gone up. This will shift your aggregate supply curve on the left-hand side.
Right.
And that will lead to higher inflation and lower output, and this is called stagflation. This is what Pakistan has experienced.
Do you think Pakistan was in a stagflationary episode since the Russia-Ukraine war?
No, since 2018, September. We were already in that in stagflationary regime. Yes, inflation were going down. Inflation were rising, and output were going down.
But 2018, sir, we did not have an active IMF program. We entered the program again in 2019 when the new government was elected.
No.
Sorry, I may have gotten my timeline wrong.
No, you are right. Officially, program launched on July 2019.
Right.
But Pakistan was implementing prior actions. We started negotiation with the IMF sometime in September or October, early October. And then we were asked to take some prior actions.
Yeah.
And that is why interest rate and inflation, interest rate and currency devaluation started taking place. Every morning when you woke up and you're taking your breakfast before television, you see, oh, rupee has been down by 10 rupees today. The dollar has become expensive by 10 rupees.
Yeah.
And then you get heart attack. The businesses get heart attack. So everybody went on wait and see mode. We don't know what will happen tomorrow. So why go and take decision today? So they all went on wait and see. And that is why this economy started slowing down. Now, if you look at 2020, 21 and 21, 22, our GDP growth surged,
Hmm.
surged.
Yeah.
This was opening up. You see, when the pandemic came, economy slowed down globally,
Hmm.
including in Pakistan. I
Hmm.
think we had a negative growth rate.
It was negative
Hmm?
0.19, and then the one you're
Yes,
referring to was 3.94 the next year in 2021, 2022.
and
Almost
then
4%.
then again it was about 6% in.
Yeah. And the year
I
after.
think
Yes.
because Pakistan was not under the IMF program at that time. All the harakiri were suspended.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So businesses took, nice. This was a nice day for businesses. No devaluation. Exchange interest rate came down to 13.25 to around 7% during pandemic, and then program was virtually suspended, and that
Hmm.
is why economy picked up.
Hmm.
So whenever, see, this is the 25th program.
But then, sir,
Why it takes 25 program for Pakistan's economy to come out from the crisis? No, sir. The program is meant to create crisis.
sir,
That is why,
I,
yeah,
I, something that comes to my mind is this idea of the heating up of the economy. Now, there's a school of thought in Pakistan that says the economy heats up and it lends more to deficits than to growth if growth is greater than 4%. Do you
I
think
am
that
aware of
threshold
those people.
exists?
I am aware of those people. And if you look at the background of those people, I don't want to say these things, but they have their own right. They have every right to express their views. But developing countries like Pakistan overheating, I just see. I've sat in the Ministry of Finance for 11 long years. Those people who say all these things, they have never sat in the Ministry of Finance.
Hmm.
Maybe for a few days, few months, they may be sitting in Ministry of Finance 11 long years to see what is overheating and what is cooling down of the economy. It doesn't. It all matters how you manage your economy.
Right. Right.
When you suppose economy is overheating, then people are importing. There are other instruments we have learned in economics, other than exchange rate and other than interest rate. We have learned that you can quantitative restrictions and other. There are many other measures. You can target those commodities. For example, if there is overheating taking place, look at this. What are the commodities that we are importing? For example, car.
Hmm.
Take certain measures. Import restrictions. That not more than 200 cars will be imported this year. That's it.
But then the free marketers grab us from the collar, sir. What
No,
should we
sir.
do?
No, 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 no. The free market, what?
The free marketers then grab us from the collar if you implement import restrictions.
What is happening today around the world? Where is the free market operating? So those people who are the
Yeah.
champion of free market
Yeah.
are themselves playing havoc with the free market. So
Yeah.
see, you have to manage your economy. Sometime you have to do something else than what is written in textbook.
Right.
Textbook economics doesn't work every time in every country in the world.
Right.
But having said this, I'm not saying that what is happening in the United States as far as tariff war is concerned, just this is bad thing which is happening. It should not have been done, and this will destroy the existing global economic order.
Sir, one question about IMF programs, and I hear your thoughts on. I'll ask two quick questions, and I think we're nearing the end of our time for the show as well. One is about the IMF program. If you look at this region, this South Asian region, I think Pakistan doesn't have very peculiar circumstances, or we in certain cases may have. Why haven't Bangladesh and India, number one, gone to the IMF, and how differently did they manage their economy? And two, I heard your conversation with Nadeemul Haq Saab the other day, and you talked
Yeah.
about boom and bust cycles. Now, given
Hmm.
this background of the conversation that we've just had, do you think that what the IMF has done in Pakistan and the stabilization programs are the cause of the boom and bust cycles? These are my two questions, sir.
The first about Bangladesh and India.
Yes.
See, there are, as in the very beginning, I have said that IMF program is a political program.
Right.
Always keep this in your mind.
Right. Right.
It has nothing to do with economics. And the program, the, the difficulties of the program depends on your relations with the major shareholder, your relationship with the major shareholder.
Right.
Now, in the case of Pakistan, what I have observed is there are pull factor and there are push factor.
Right. Yeah.
The previous prime minister, when he was campaigning for election, had said several times that we'll go hungry, but we'll not go for IMF program.
Hmm.
What forced him to change the mind? And within the first 100 days of his government, he went to the IMF.
I think
Why?
you were, sir, in his advisory council, so you would know better.
Yes, and I was the only one. I
Mhm.
was the only one who was saying, "Sir, please don't go. You know,
To the IMF.
you will see the impact in 1 or 2 years' time." And then he realized that, but people doesn't have the courage to accept their fault. But I know that he was under pressure because there were pull factor and there were push factor. Push factors were inside the government, pushing the prime minister, "Sir, if you don't go to the IMF, the market will not remain stable. Market will remain destabilized. So it is very essential that we go to the IMF." So every morning, those push factor people, they were four in numbers in the government. I don't want to name them. They were
Were
saying
were
every
they
day,
Ministry of Finance officials? Were they bureaucrats?
no, 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 just leave this that. They were in the cabinet, very important position.
Okay,
They
okay.
were
So
important
politicians,
politicians.
politicians. Okay.
They were cabinet ministers. And there were pull factor from the headquarters. Bring Pakistan back to the IMF. Bring back to the IMF.
Hmm.
So the push and the pull factor took Pakistan back to the IMF. This will happen even future as well. It has happened in 2023. Somebody called from the headquarters to our minister, the then minister, so, talking different things, and then finally stay with the IMF program. And we
Hmm.
said, "Sir, most obediently, of course." So keeping Pakistan with the IMF is maybe a requirement of geostrategic. This may be a geostrategic requirement.
Right.
That is not relevant to the Bangladesh as well as India. India itself is a very powerful. You see, Indian people are sitting in the policy making bodies in both US administration as well
Hmm.
as in the IMF.
Hmm.
So
Right.
India realized this, and in early 90s, and very quickly India just came out from the IMF program, much ahead of the time.
My second question was about the boom and bust cycles. Do you think the IMF program is the architect of Pakistan going through this kind of peculiar business cycle?
No, no. You see, look at the IMF program. The basic philosophy of the IMF program is stabilization first,
Yeah.
growth will follow. But since 1988, barring 4 years of President Musharraf, we are in the IMF program. We are under the stabilization mode. I think the question which Nadeem asked me was that we should now give importance to growth. I said, how can you go for growth as long as you are under the IMF program? Because the IMF program is meant to stabilize, not promote growth. So we have been under stabilization for 34, 35 years now. And as long as we remain under the IMF program, the making up of the IMF program is such that it is stabilization. Just shut down your economy, aggregate demand and aggregate supply will come into balance. That's it. And the moment you open up the economy, import will surge, and then you will again into a difficult cycle. So we have to move very, very carefully. Not all the economic instruments will work at the same time. Reliance only on monetary and exchange rate policies to curtail aggregate demand may be counterproductive in Pakistan. Some other economic measures will have to be taken, and this is permissible under the economic theory that we have studied wherever we went to study.
Right.
Right.
Sir, my last question, and you can give like a quick response, and then we'll wrap this up, is about the current direction of the Pakistan economy. Remittances have gone up, even though in the past we used to hear that remittances only go up and that's like a testament to kind of the things that you've been saying. It kind of empirically proves that remittances have shot up massively over the last 2 years, 32%, I think, year over year in over the same period last year, in fiscal year 2025. But the rupee wasn't devalued. Similarly, primary surplus was like positive in the first 6 months of 2025. Why do you think that is happening? Is that a result of some policy, or is that just like a natural kind of energy in the economy?
No, 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 no. Who sends the remittances and to whom? Sons, father, uncle, they have gone to work in Middle East and some other places.
Right.
They are sending money to their families back home.
Yeah.
When they used to send, say, I'm just giving an example, $300 per month, it was more than sufficient for the families to look after themselves here. But because of increase in inflation, inflationary pressure, this $300 is not sufficient to run the same household. So these people have said, sir, $300 is not, send me something more. Now I'm sending my family $500 per month.
Right, right.
It is the persistence of high inflation.
So cost of living is a factor, you think?
Cost of living has gone up. See, after 30, 40 years of my services, today, my 40% of salary is gone for 3 items: income tax, electricity, and the gas bill. That's it. Imagine how the others, and in my family size was only 3 people. Myself, my wife, and my son. My 2 daughters are married and they are living abroad. So with 3-person family, I am feeling the pinch. I am feeling the pressure. I pay 61,000 rupees per month income tax. I'm a teacher. So what is left for me? What is my disposable income? It has gone down. You will be surprised when I joined NUST in 1st of March 1998. My salary in US dollar at that time was around 3,400 per month. With that exchange rate, I'm converting that, my salary with that year's exchange rate, it was 3,400 rupees, $1 per
In
month.
NUST in Islamabad.
In NUST in Islamabad.
Right.
Right. And I was the dean of NUST Business School. Today, my salary is less than $700. Right? My salary has not increased, but the cost of living has gone up, plus currency devaluation. My salary is now $700, from $3,400 to $700. Now, if my son or my father was working in Middle East, in Saudi Arabia, or some other places, I would definitely tell my brother, my son, or my father that it's very difficult to survive with $700. Please increase your remittances. Try to increase your remittances. I think the family members, they are also aware of that, the challenges their kith and kins are facing back in Pakistan as far as cost of living is concerned. They are sending more remittances.
Right, right.
Secondly, I think our banking system has also improved significantly in terms of quick transfer of the remittances. So some banking improvement, banking side improvement has also contributed, but mostly I think it is the cost of living with which has forced the family to send more dollar to their family back home.
And do you think remittances have a role to play in the positive CAD that we have now, the current account deficit surplus we
Remittances,
have?
yes, of course,
Okay.
of course, of course. See, remittances is now more than our export.
Yeah.
So it has played a significant role in keeping our current account deficit under control.
Right. Sir, thank you so much for joining, for taking out time. I learned a lot, and I'm sure my audience also did.
Thank you for having me, and I tried to explain in
No, I
whatever way.
was.
But before you end, I will tell you, I will again say, I am not against the IMF. IMF is a great institution. I said in Nadim's program also, I'm saying again in your program also, it is a great institution. I also wanted, after my graduation from Johns Hopkins, I also wanted to join IMF.
Right, right.
So it's a highly respected institution, highly professional institution, but I know that there are limitations. I know there are limitations. They are
Right.
not purely an economic institutions. But we have to look after, protect our own interest in Pakistan.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. On that note,
Thank you.